On the edge of a quiet seaside village lived a poor fisherman and his wife in a small broken hut near the shore. Every day, the fisherman sailed out in his tiny boat to catch fish for supper, while his wife waited by the window, watching the endless sea. But one strange evening, as the sun sank into the water, the fisherman caught something glowing, a golden fish that spoke. "Please let me go," said the fish, "for I am not an ordinary fish. I am an enchanted prince." Shocked, the fisherman set it free at once. But when he returned home and told his wife, she gasped. "You let a talking fish go, and didn't ask for a single wish?" That night, the sea roared louder than ever, and the wife's eyes gleamed. "If the fish can grant wishes," she whispered, "then maybe our life can finally change." Lightning flashed. Waves crashed. And so began a tale of greed, magic, and the sea that never sleeps. The morning after the fisherman's first wish came true, the little cottage shone in the early sunlight. It had white walls, a red roof, and neat flower beds that danced with color. Inside, the air smelled of bread baking in a new oven, something they had never owned before. The fisherman's wife stood before a mirror, touching the lace curtains and golden cups on the table. "Look at this," she said, smiling. "All from one wish." The fisherman sat by the door, mending his fishing net. "It's a miracle," he said softly. "We should thank the golden fish and live humbly." But his wife turned her head. Her smile faded into a thoughtful frown. "Humbly," she said. "Do you think we were meant to live small forever? If the fish can grant one wish, maybe it can grant more." The fisherman looked uneasy. "The sea is powerful, wife. We should not ask too much." But that night, the wind picked up again. Waves rolled against the rocks, louder than before, as if the ocean itself was listening. The wife couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, staring out the window at the restless sea. In the morning, her voice was firm. "Go back to the fish," she said. The fisherman sighed deeply. "What could we possibly need now?" "I want more than this cottage," she said. "I want a grand stone house, with servants and gardens and fine dresses. Tell the fish to grant it." The fisherman hesitated but saw the fierce look in her eyes. He knew he couldn't refuse. Slowly, he walked down to the shore. The sea looked darker than yesterday, green and gray, with waves that rose and fell like breathing. He called softly, golden fish, come if you can. My wife has sent me to you again." The golden fish appeared, its scales shining even beneath the stormy clouds. "What does she want this time?" the fish asked. The fisherman lowered his eyes. "She wants a grand stone house, with gardens and servants." The fish sighed, and the sea rippled around it. "Go home," it said quietly. "She has it already." When the fisherman reached the shore, he froze in disbelief. The small cottage had vanished. In its place stood a tall, shining palace, with marble steps, silver doors, and gardens filled with roses. Servants hurried about, carrying baskets of fruit and flowers. His wife stood at the gate, dressed in silk and jewels that sparkled like stars. "Ah, husband," she cried. "Now this is life." The fisherman smiled weakly, though his heart felt heavy. "It is beautiful," he said. "But remember to thank the fish." His wife laughed lightly. Of course. But her eyes wandered toward the sea again, watching the waves roll and crash, as if she was already thinking of something bigger. And deep beneath those waves, the golden fish swam slowly through the dark water. Its light flickered dimly, as though it, too, felt the coming storm. Sparkles, but what wish would the wife demand next? Would her greed ever end, or would the sea itself rise to stop her? When the fisherman reached the shore that day, he froze in disbelief. His little white cottage, the one that had made him so happy just yesterday, was gone. In its place stood a magnificent stone palace that sparkled like a jewel beneath the cloudy sky. The walls were made of smooth marble, white as snow. Tall silver gates stood open, and a wide path led through gardens filled with red roses, golden lilies, and fountains that sprayed water high into the air. The sound of music drifted from inside, soft, graceful notes played by invisible hands. The fisherman blinked, hardly believing his eyes. He could see servants in fine clothes walking about, carrying baskets of fruit, silk curtains fluttering from the windows, and lanterns glowing even though it was day. And there, at the top of the grand stairs, stood his wife. She wore a gown of deep blue silk that shimmered with every move she made. A silver crown rested on her head, and she smiled proudly when she saw him. "Well," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "Do you see what your golden fish has given us now?" The fisherman walked up slowly, looking around with awe. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "But, are you happy now?" "Happy," she laughed, walking down the steps gracefully. "I am more than happy. We finally live like people who matter. No more patching nets or mending roofs. We have servants for that." She led him through the palace, showing him room after room, halls filled with shining mirrors, long dining tables made of crystal, soft beds that felt like clouds. Everything glittered. Everything was perfect. But the fisherman, as he followed her, felt a strange chill. The walls were beautiful, yet cold. The music played sweetly, yet felt hollow. He looked out through the tall windows toward the sea, and his heart ached. The waves were darker now, restless and rough, as though the ocean was not at peace. That night, as thunder rolled far away, the fisherman sat on the palace balcony, staring at the horizon. "I should thank the fish again," he whispered. His wife, sitting nearby in her silken chair, waved her hand. "Oh, the fish knows. It's a magical creature, it understands our needs." He frowned. "Needs?" She turned her gaze toward the stormy sea. "Do you think this is all we can have? A palace by the shore?" The fisherman felt his stomach tighten. "Wife, please. Let this be enough. The sea grows angrier each time I return. We should stop before it's too late." But his wife only smiled, a strange, faraway smile. "You don't understand, husband. The fish owes us. It's fate. Maybe I should be queen." "Queen," he repeated, horrified. "You're talking like someone who's lost her way." Her voice grew colder. "Or maybe I've finally found it." The wind howled outside, rattling the glass. Lightning flashed across the dark water, and for an instant, the fisherman thought he saw a golden light beneath the waves, faint and trembling, like a warning. He couldn't sleep that night. The palace walls felt too grand, too strange, as if they were alive, listening. Somewhere far away, the sea whispered, not soft and kind anymore, but deep and angry. And in that moment, the fisherman knew, the sea remembers every wish. But his wife, gazing out her window toward the endless horizon, whispered one last thought to herself, a thought that made her heart race. "If I can ask to be queen," she murmured, "why not, empress of all the world?" The next morning, her eyes gleamed brighter than the palace itself. The fisherman didn't yet know it, but her next wish would test not only the sea, but fate itself. When the fisherman's small boat touched the sand, the world around him had changed beyond all reason. The familiar broken hut and tiny garden by the shore were gone, as if they had never existed. In their place stood a grand palace that reached up to the gray, thundering sky. The walls were carved from white stone and shimmered like pearls when lightning flashed across the sea. Great silver gates guarded the front, and tall glass windows sparkled even through the misty air. The fisherman's mouth fell open. He dropped his net into the sand, unable to move. What has happened here?" he whispered. Then he saw her, his wife. She was standing at the top of a long marble staircase, dressed in a flowing gown of deep ocean blue. Her hair, once tangled from sea wind, was now braided with ribbons of gold. Diamonds glittered around her neck. She smiled, her face glowing with pride. "Ah, husband," she called. "You're just in time for supper." The fisherman climbed the long stairs, his old boots squeaking on the marble. "Wife," he said softly, "is this our home?" She laughed joyfully. "Yes. The golden fish heard my wish. Isn't it wonderful? We're no longer poor. We have servants, fine food, and a bed softer than clouds." As she spoke, two servants opened the palace doors. Inside was a hall so wide that his footsteps echoed for several seconds. Crystal lamps hung from the ceiling like stars. The air smelled of roses and honey. The fisherman had never seen such beauty. Yet, as he walked through the rooms, one with golden chairs, another filled with paintings and glowing mirrors, his heart felt heavy. "It's all so grand," he said, "but it doesn't feel like home." His wife turned sharply toward him. "Home? You call that old hut a home? This is what we deserved all along. Look at us now, important, respected, rich." The fisherman looked down, unable to argue. She had always dreamed of more, but he feared the price of asking too much from the sea. That evening, they ate at a long dining table with candles taller than his arm. Servants brought plates of roasted fish, fruit, and sweet bread. The fisherman said a quiet prayer of thanks, but his wife barely listened. She was gazing out the tall window toward the dark sea, her eyes reflecting the flashes of lightning beyond the waves. "It's beautiful," she said softly, almost to herself. "But it's not enough." The fisherman turned to her in disbelief. "Not enough? You have everything you could wish for." She smiled faintly, though her eyes burned with restless hunger. "Everything? No, not yet. The world is filled with queens and castles, why should I be less than them? If the fish can give us this, maybe it can give us more." The fisherman pushed his chair back, his voice trembling. "Wife, don't speak such words. The sea grows darker each time I return. I fear we're angering it." But she stood and walked toward the window, her silk dress whispering against the floor. "You fear too much. The fish owes us, husband. We freed it. It will give us what we deserve." Thunder rolled across the sky. The sea outside roared louder, throwing white foam against the rocks. The fisherman stared at the water, it no longer looked calm or kind. It churned, restless, like something alive. Late that night, when the palace was quiet, he stepped outside. The moon hung low, glowing pale and cold. The air smelled of salt and storm. He could almost hear a whisper rising from the waves, soft but full of warning. He shivered. "Golden fish," he murmured into the wind, "I never meant for things to go this far." Inside, his wife stood before a mirror, running her hands over the jewels on her dress. But when she looked at her reflection, she didn't smile. She saw a queen, yet felt empty inside. "The sea can give more," she whispered to herself. "It must." And far below, deep in the cold heart of the ocean, the golden fish swam through shadows. Its light dimmed for a moment, as if it had heard her words. A current stirred around it, dark and heavy, the kind that carries warnings. By morning, the fisherman would learn that one wish can fill a heart, but two can start to break it. Sparkles, the next wish will not come so kindly. Days turned into weeks, and the fisherman's wife grew more powerful and more restless. Her grand palace stood like a jewel by the shore, with towers that touched the sky and gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. People from nearby villages came just to stare at it, whispering stories about the woman who once lived in a hut and now ruled over servants and wealth beyond measure. To them, she was the lady of the sea palace. But in her heart, she longed for something greater, a crown. One morning, she stood at her tall window, gazing toward the horizon. The sea was dark green and heavy with clouds. The fisherman came to her side quietly. "You've been watching the sea again," he said softly. She smiled without looking away. "It's strange," she murmured. "I can almost hear it calling me, like it's waiting for something." Her husband frowned. "The sea doesn't call, wife. It warns." She turned to him, her eyes gleaming. "Then maybe it's warning that I'm not meant to stay here. I should rule, husband, as a queen. A real one. The fish can make that happen." The fisherman felt his heart sink. "A queen," he repeated, shaking his head. "You already have everything. You live like royalty. Must you have a crown too?" She crossed her arms. "Yes. I want people to bow when I pass. I want ships to carry my name. Go to the fish, husband. Tell it I will not settle for less. The fisherman's shoulders sagged. He looked at her, but her face was firm, cold, almost shining with pride. There was no changing her mind. So, with a heavy heart, he took his small boat and pushed it into the waves once more. The sea was no longer friendly. It had turned a murky gray, and the wind whistled sharply through the air. Waves slapped against the sides of the boat as if to push him back. When he reached the deeper waters, he called out, his voice trembling. Golden fish, come if you can. My wife has sent me to you again. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint golden glow appeared beneath the surface. The fish rose slowly, but its light was dimmer than before. The fisherman bowed his head. I beg you, forgive us. My wife, she wishes to be queen. The fish's silver eyes blinked once. She asks for much, it said softly. The sea grows tired. I know, said the fisherman, his voice full of sorrow. But she will not listen. The fish circled slowly in the water, leaving ripples that shimmered in the stormlight. Go home, it said at last. She is queen already. The fisherman felt a chill. He didn't ask what the fish meant, he only turned and rowed toward the shore, his heart heavy as the sky. When he reached land, he saw it. His palace was gone, replaced by a towering castle of silver and glass, crowned with banners that waved in the wind. Trumpets sounded in the distance, and hundreds of people filled the courtyard, cheering. His wife stood on the balcony, wearing a flowing golden gown and a crown that glittered brighter than the sun. I am queen, she declared, her voice echoing across the cliffs. Queen of the shore and all who sail the sea. The fishermen watched in silence. Servants bowed, ships in the harbor flew her flags, and the air shimmered with power. Yet, when she turned her face toward the sea, her eyes looked cold and empty. That night, as rain began to fall, she sat alone on her throne. It's strange, she whispered to herself. Even as queen, I still feel small. The fisherman stood nearby, his eyes filled with sadness. Because the sea never gives joy to those who keep asking for more, he said gently. She didn't reply. Her gaze had already drifted to the storm outside. Far below, beneath the crashing waves, the golden fish swam slower than ever, its light fading. The sea groaned like a living creature, its voice low and deep. And somewhere in the darkness, a question echoed, one that would change everything. What happens when a queen demands to rule the sea itself? The palace that once dazzled the coast now seemed too small for the fisherman's wife. Her silken gowns, her gardens filled with roses, her marble halls, all of it began to feel ordinary. She would walk from one end of her grand home to the other, her slippers brushing against gold-tiled floors, her mind burning with restless dreams. Every evening, she stood before her tall glass window overlooking the darkening sea. The waves crashed hard against the rocks, the wind howled through the cliffs, and the scent of salt filled the air. She would stand there for hours, her jeweled fingers tapping against the window frame. Her husband often found her there. Why do you stare at the sea so long? He asked one night, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. She didn't turn to face him. Because it looks back at me, she whispered. It feels alive. It knows I can be more. The fisherman's heart grew heavy. You are already blessed. We were once poor and cold, but now you live like a queen. Her lips curved into a slow smile. Then let me truly be one. He frowned. What do you mean? She turned to him at last, her eyes flashing like lightning. I want to be queen, not of this palace, not of a small shore, but of all the land nearby. The people should bow when I pass. They should sing my name. The golden fish will make it happen. The fisherman stepped back, his face pale. No, wife. You mustn't ask again. Each time I go to the sea, it grows angrier. Can't you see the storms? Can't you hear its warnings? But his wife only laughed, a cold, graceful sound that echoed through the room. Warnings? The sea owes me. I freed its prince from a net. It should be thankful. Gratitude fades when greed grows, said the fisherman softly. She ignored him. The next morning, before the sun rose, she woke him sharply. "Go," she commanded. "Ask the fish to make me queen." He stared at her in despair, but her face was set like stone. There was no refusing her now. He walked slowly to the shore. The sky was a dull gray, the waves rolled like beasts under the wind. The water that once glittered blue now foamed white with anger. Still, he stepped into his small boat and rowed out. Every pull of the oar felt heavier than the last. The sea hissed and slapped against the sides as if trying to warn him back. When he reached the deep water, he raised his voice against the storm. Golden fish, come if you can. My wife has sent me to you again." For a long time, the waves only roared. Then, from below, a faint light shimmered, golden, but weak. The fish rose from the dark depths, its voice calm yet tired. "What does she desire now?" it asked quietly. The fisherman lowered his head. "She wishes to be queen." The golden fish's silver eyes blinked once, then slowly dimmed. "She asks for much," it murmured. "The sea grows weary of her wanting." "I know," said the fisherman. "I told her it is enough. But she will not listen." The fish's tail flicked, sending ripples across the waves. "Go home," it said. "She is queen already." The fisherman's heart sank as he turned back to shore. He rowed through rain and wind, his boat rocking dangerously. When he reached the beach, he gasped, for the palace he had left behind was gone. In its place stood a castle of silver and glass, taller and grander than any he had ever seen. Its towers rose into the mist, its gates guarded by soldiers in shining armor. Trumpets sounded as he stepped onto the sand. People filled the courtyards, cheering, waving flags, calling out the name of their new queen. At the top of the highest balcony stood his wife. She wore a gown of shimmering gold, and on her head rested a crown that caught every spark of sunlight. When she saw him, she smiled, proud and radiant. "I am queen," she declared, her voice echoing like thunder. "Queen of the shore and all the lands that touch the sea." The people bowed, the guards saluted, and the fisherman stood below, silent. He looked up at her, the woman he had once loved for her laughter and warmth, and saw now a stranger with eyes cold as the tide. That night, after the cheering faded and the torches burned low, the fisherman found her sitting alone on her throne, staring at her reflection in the golden mirror. He approached quietly. "You have everything now," he said gently. "Power, gold, servants, fame. Does it fill your heart?" Her reflection smiled faintly, but her voice was distant. "It fills the world," she said. "But not me." The fisherman's eyes softened with sorrow. "Because the sea cannot give peace, only wishes." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, and the waves crashed harder than ever. The fisherman turned to the window and whispered, "The sea is restless. It remembers." His wife, however, did not hear him. Her gaze was fixed upon the black horizon. The wind tugged at the curtains as she whispered to herself, almost like a dream. "If I can be queen, then why not empress of the world?" Down below, in the endless dark water, the golden fish drifted slowly through the cold current. Its glow flickered weakly, dimmer than before. Around it, the sea stirred, heavy, angry, alive. And though no human ear could hear it, the ocean spoke one word to the depths below. Enough. The morning after the coronation broke with a strange stillness. No gulls called, no waves sang against the sand. The entire coast seemed to hold its breath. Even the air was heavy, thick with the scent of salt and warning. From the balcony of her towering castle, the queen of the shore looked out upon her kingdom. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, calm yet unsettling. Its glassy surface gleamed like a mirror, too still, too silent. She smiled faintly, mistaking the quiet for peace. At last, she whispered, "The sea bows before me." But down below, in the deepest trenches of the sea, the golden fish swam in circles of fading light. The weight of the queen's greed pressed upon the water, darkening it. The once gentle currents now twisted with unease. That night, as the queen dined in her glittering hall, the fisherman sat beside her, silent and worried. He had not spoken much since her wish was granted. Every time thunder rolled in the distance, he felt dread bloom in his chest. "My queen," he said softly, "you've been given more than anyone could dream. The sea has given you everything. Please, let it rest." But she only laughed, waving a jeweled hand. "The sea is endless, old man. It can never run out of giving." Before he could reply, the doors burst open. A guard ran in, soaked and breathless. "Your Majesty, the waves are rising. The shore is flooding, and the wind grows wild." The queen stood, her crown glinting. "Nonsense," she said. "It's just a storm. I command the coast now, even the sea knows who rules it." She walked toward the balcony, pulling open the grand doors. A blast of wind howled into the hall, tearing through the curtains. Lightning split the sky, and for an instant, the horizon glowed a terrifying gold. There, amid the raging waves, the golden fish appeared, but it was no longer shining. Its scales were dull, its eyes hollow, its body trembling with anger. "Why do you disturb me again?" The fish's voice boomed like thunder, echoing in her mind though its mouth never moved. Was it not enough? The queen raised her chin proudly. "Enough? No. I am queen, yes, but there are other lands beyond the sea. Make me empress of the world. Let all people bow before me." The fisherman gasped. "Wife, stop. Please, look at what you're doing." But she stepped closer to the edge, rain soaking her gown, her crown slipping slightly. "I freed you," she shouted into the storm. "You owe me everything." The fish's golden eyes blazed with sorrow. "You freed me once, but now you have chained yourself." The sea began to churn violently, waves towering higher and higher. The queen stumbled backward as water crashed against the castle walls. The fisherman ran to her, gripping her arm. "Apologize," he cried. "Tell it you're sorry before it's too late." She turned to him, eyes full of fury. "I am queen of the shore. I bow to no one." Her voice was drowned by the sound of the sea exploding into rage. Lightning struck the castle tower, splitting it in two. The guards screamed as the floors trembled beneath their feet. The fisherman pulled his wife toward the door, but the water surged up, shattering windows and sweeping through the halls. In the chaos, the queen's crown was ripped from her head, vanishing into the storm. She fell to her knees, clutching her heart, staring at the rising water in disbelief. "No," she whispered. "It's mine, it was all mine." The golden fish's voice came once more, softer now, filled with sorrow. "All things born from greed must return to the sea." And with one final roar, the ocean swallowed the castle whole. When the sun rose the next morning, the waves had calmed. The fisherman awoke on the sand, cold and trembling. Beside him, the palace was gone. No gold, no crown, nothing remained but their small, broken hut, just as it had been long ago. He looked toward the sea, where the water glimmered softly once more. The golden fish appeared for a brief moment, its light gentle and kind. "Live in peace," it whispered. "The sea gives only when hearts are humble." Then it vanished beneath the waves. The fisherman sat quietly for a long time, the breeze brushing against his face. The hut behind him creaked softly, familiar, small, and safe. He turned toward it, whispering through his tears. She only wanted more, and lost everything. Far out at sea, lightning flickered one last time, as if the ocean itself remembered her name. Days passed after the storm, and the fisherman lived in silence. The sea that once roared with life was now calm and still, as if it too were grieving. His wife was gone, and the grand castle, the golden walls, the fine clothes, all had been taken back by the waves. He sat by the shore every morning, just as he always had, casting his old, torn net into the gray-blue water. But now, he did not fish for food or treasure. He simply sat, watching the sea breathe. Sometimes, the waves whispered softly, carrying echoes of her voice, proud, longing, and lost. He would close his eyes and listen, wondering if she had found peace somewhere beneath the water's surface. The villagers spoke in hushed tones. "They say the sea took her because she wanted too much." They say the golden fish punished her. But the fisherman never spoke a word in anger. He would only smile faintly and say, "The sea gives, and the sea takes." One evening, as the sun sank low, the water shimmered with golden light once more. The fisherman's heart leapt, the light looked just like the fish's glow. He waded into the waves, calling softly, "Golden fish, are you there?" From beneath the water, a shape appeared, small, graceful, glowing faintly in the twilight. The golden fish looked older now, slower, as if it had carried too many wishes upon its back. "Old man," it said gently, "you still call me?" The fisherman bowed his head. "I do not ask for riches. I do not ask for castles. I only want to thank you for giving me back what matters most." The fish tilted its head. "And what is that?" He smiled sadly. "Peace." The fish circled him once, the golden light swirling like the reflection of stars on water. "You have learned what few ever do," it said. "Greed blinds the eyes, but humility opens the heart. Your wife lost her way, yet your kindness saved her soul." The fisherman looked up, surprised. "Her soul? Is she?" The fish shimmered brighter. "She rests now, deep beneath the waves, where her voice softens the storm. When you hear the sea sigh at dusk, that is her song." Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered, "Then I will listen to the sea forever." The golden fish's body glowed once more, and with a gentle splash, it disappeared into the depths, leaving only ripples of gold across the surface. From that day on, the sea around the village changed. The storms grew weaker. The winds carried laughter instead of thunder. And sometimes, when the tide rolled in, tiny shells shaped like crowns would wash ashore, reminders of the woman who once wished to rule the sea. The fisherman grew old by the shore, his hair turning white like the foam on the waves. Each sunset, he would hum a small tune, the same tune his wife once sang when they were young and dreaming. And though he lived alone, he was never truly lonely. For every whisper of the sea, every glimmer of light beneath the water, told him he was not forgotten. When he finally closed his eyes for the last time, the villagers said the sea was calm, too calm, like it was waiting. The waves carried his small boat out toward the horizon, glowing faintly in golden light. No one ever saw it again. But on quiet nights, when the stars danced above the ocean, fishermen claimed they could see two shapes beneath the waves, a man and a woman walking hand in hand, surrounded by soft golden light. And from then on, no one in that village ever wished for too much again. Years turned into decades, and the story of the poor fisherman and his wife became a whisper carried by the sea breeze. The waves that once devoured a castle now kissed the same stretch of sand with quiet gentleness. The village, once small and forgotten, grew into a place where people came not to seek riches, but to learn the lesson the sea had taught. Every child born by the shore grew up hearing the tale from their grandparents. There was once a humble fisherman who caught a golden fish, and a wife whose heart wanted more than the sea could give. They would listen wide-eyed as the old storytellers pointed to the horizon where the water met the sky, and the golden shimmer of sunset touched the waves. "That light," they'd say, "is the fish's blessing, a reminder to be grateful for what you have." The villagers built a small stone shrine near the water's edge. Inside, they placed a simple carving of a man holding a fishing net beside a woman reaching toward the sea. Between them was a small golden shell, said to have been found by a child many years after the storm. The elders believed it was the last gift of the golden fish. Every year, when the tide was highest and the moon was full, the people gathered by the shore for the festival of the sea's promise. They lit lanterns shaped like fish and set them adrift upon the water. As the lanterns floated away, they sang softly, songs of hope, love, and remembrance. No one spoke of greed or kings or crowns anymore. Instead, they spoke of kindness, patience, and balance, the things that truly kept a heart rich. Children played near the waves, building castles of sand only to watch them crumble. Their parents would smile and say, "See? Even the strongest castles belong to the sea. But the sea will always give you back beauty if your heart is kind." Some nights, when the world was quiet and the stars shimmered like spilled diamonds over the dark water, the villagers swore they could hear faint laughter, soft, distant, and familiar. It came from beneath the waves, the voice of a woman, tender now, singing with the rhythm of the tide. And those who stayed long enough claimed to see two faint lights deep below the surface, one golden, one silver, twirling slowly together like the reflection of stars. The fisherman's hut still stood by the shore, though its wood had aged gray and the roof had begun to sink. No one dared rebuild it or tear it down. They said it belonged to the sea now, and the sea belonged to them all. One morning, a little girl named Mira, curious and brave, wandered close to the water before dawn. She saw something glinting near the foam. It was a shell, small, perfect, and glowing softly like a drop of sunlight. When she picked it up, she heard a whisper in the wind. "Be content, little one. The sea gives when your heart is kind." She ran to the village, clutching the shell, and told everyone what she heard. The elders smiled, for they knew the sea never truly forgot those who respected it. They placed the shell inside the old shrine beside the golden one. And from that day on, two shells gleamed side by side, one for the fisherman, one for his wife. Generations passed, but the sea remained faithful. It no longer roared with rage, and storms seldom struck the coast. Sailors who left from that village always returned safely, saying the waters there were calm, as if something deep beneath was watching over them. And so the legend lived on, not as a warning, but as a promise. That the sea, like life itself, can be kind or cruel, depending on what you bring to it. And when the waves glow gold at dusk, the villagers still pause and bow their heads, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Because somewhere, beyond the edge of sight, a fisherman and his wife walk hand in hand beneath the shimmering water, their hearts finally at peace, their love forever part of the sea's endless song.